Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel TechQuest Learning Point. I am here with a new episode of the series tutorial Create ASP.NET Web Application using C#. Today I am going to start fourth episode named ADO.NET Overview of the series tutorial. The main purpose of this video session is to clarify how a group of classes and components labeled as ADO.NET and offered by the .NET framework allows developers to interact with data sources like databases in an organized and effective way. Before we end the session, let's demonstrate how to use ADO.NET to retrieve data from an SQL Server database using a data provider in the Microsoft Visual Studio 2022 environment. We will create a web application based on the .NET Framework 4.8 library. More specifically, a small application is designed and developed using Textbox, DropDownList, GridView, and DataTable. The application retrieves electric bill related data to view in the GridView, helping learners understand the uses of ADO.NET features. The script of the tutorial in PDF is given in the description box. The agenda of this video session will be: number 1. Introduction to ADO.NET. ADO.NET is a fundamental part of the .NET framework, providing essential tools for data access and manipulation. 2. Data providers: SQL Server, OLEDB, ODBC. The choice of data provider depends on the application requirements, the database system used, and the desired features for data access. 3. Using connection string. A connection string is vital for connecting applications to data sources. 4. Connecting to SQL Server. To demonstrate the basic use of ADO.NET to fetch data from a SQL Server database. Prerequisite of this series tutorial. Before starting this tutorial, you need to have the basic foundation on C#. You may follow the tutorial Programming C# for Beginners, which is enough for making the foundation on C#. The link of the tutorial Programming C# for Beginners is given in the description box. Good news to you all that I am going to start a tutorial ASP.NET Core 8 MVC soon. Please subscribe and stay with us if you want to get the upcoming episodes of the tutorial. Okay, let's start. Introduction to ADO.NET. ADO.NET is a set of classes and components provided by the .NET framework that enables developers to interact with data sources such as databases in a structured and efficient manner. It is an integral part of the .NET ecosystem, primarily used for data access in applications developed using languages like C# and VB.NET. ADO.NET provides comprehensive support for working with both connected and disconnected data scenarios, making it a flexible choice for a variety of applications from desktop to web-based solutions. Key features of ADO.NET. Number 1. Connected and disconnected data access. Connected access. ADO.NET allows applications to maintain a continuous connection to the database using SQL connection or similar connection objects. This is useful for scenarios where real-time data updates are necessary. Disconnected access. ADO.NET provides mechanisms to retrieve data from a database, manipulate it in memory using data sets, and then send the changes back to the database. This approach reduces the burden on the database server, making it more efficient for operations involving multiple users or transactions. Number 2, data providers. ADO.NET includes various data providers, which are specialized components tailored for different types of data sources. Each provider offers a set of classes that allow for efficient data communication. The most commonly used providers are SQL Client for Microsoft SQL Server, Oracle Client for Oracle databases deprecated in favor of ODP.NET, OLEDB for accessing databases via OLEDB such as Microsoft Access, ODBC for accessing databases using ODBC drivers. Number 3, dataset and DataTable. The dataset is a powerful in-memory representation of data that can hold multiple tables, relationships, and constraints. It enables data manipulation without requiring a constant connection to the data source. The data table represents a single table of in-memory data and supports operations such as sorting, filtering, and searching. Number 4, data adapter. The data adapter acts as a bridge between the data set and the data source. It is responsible for populating the data set with data from the database and updating the database with changes made to the data set. Number 5, command object. ADO.NET uses command objects, SQL command, OLEDB command, etc. to execute SQL queries and stored procedures. These commands allow parameterized queries for enhanced security and performance against SQL injection. Number 6, transactions. ADO.NET supports transactions, allowing multiple operations to be committed or rolled back as a single unit of work. This feature ensures data integrity in database operations. Typical workflow of ADO.NET. Here's an outline of the typical workflow for using ADO.NET to access a database. Number 1, establish a connection. Create a connection object, as for example SQL connection, and open connection. Number 2, create command. Instantiate a command object to define the SQL query or stored procedure to execute. Number 3, execute the command. Use the command object to execute the query. Depending on the type of command, you may retrieve data using execute reader or update data using execute non-query. Number 4, fill dataset or data table. Optionally, use a data adapter to fill a dataset or data table with the results of the command. Number 5. Manipulate data. If using a data set, you can manipulate data, add, edit, delete in the in-memory representation. Number 6. Update changes. Use data adapter to update the database with any changes made to the dataset. Number 7. Close the connection. Clean up resources by closing the connection and disposing of objects. ADO.NET is a fundamental part of the .NET framework, providing essential tools for data access and manipulation. Its support for both connected and disconnected architectures makes it highly versatile, suitable for a wide range of applications, from traditional Windows forms to modern web applications. By understanding ADO.NET, developers can effectively interact with various data sources and create robust, data-driven applications. Data providers: SQL Server, OLEDB, ODBC. Data providers in ADO.NET are components that facilitate the communication between .NET applications and various data sources. Each data provider is tailored for specific technologies and database systems, offering optimized classes for connecting to and executing commands against the database. Below are 3 common data providers: SQL Server, OLEDB, and ODBC, along with their descriptions and examples. Number 1. SQL Server Data Provider. SQL Client is the data provider specially designed for Microsoft SQL Server. It offers efficient communication with SQL Server databases and provides a range of classes to execute commands and manage data. SQL Client is specially designed to be optimized for Microsoft SQL Server, providing specialized classes tailored to the unique requirements of the SQL Server environment. Key classes: SQL Connection manages the connection to the database. SQL Command executes queries or stored procedures. SQL Data Reader reads a forward-only stream of rows from the database. SQL Data Adapter fills a dataset or data table with data. Number 2. OLEDB Data Provider. OLEDB is a data access technology designed to provide access to a variety of data sources such as Microsoft Access databases and SQL Server through a common interface. The OLEDB data provider allows .NET applications to connect to any OLEDB compliant database. Simply, OLEDB provides a flexible interface to access different types of databases suitable for legacy applications and various data sources such as Access. Key classes: OLEDB Connection manages connection to the data source. OLEDB Command executes commands against the data source. OLEDB Data Reader reads data in a forward-only manner. OLEDB Data Adapter fills a data set or data table from the data source. Number 3. ODBC Data Provider. ODBC, Open Database Connectivity, is a standard API for accessing database management systems (DBMS). The ODBC data provider allows .NET applications to connect to any ODBC compliant data source, making it versatile for various database systems such as MySQL, PostgreSQL, and Oracle. Simply, ODBC is a universal data access method that allows connection to a myriad of database systems, making it ideal for applications that need to interact with multiple database types. Key classes. ODBC connection manages the ODBC connection. ODBC command executes commands against the ODBC data source. ODBC data reader reads data in import-only stream. ODBC data adapter fills a dataset or data table from the ODBC data source. The choice of data provider depends on the application requirements, the database system used, and desired features for data access. Each provider has its strengths and is suited for specific use cases. Using connection strings. A connection string is a string used to establish a connection to a database from an application. It contains various parameters that specify how to connect to the data source, including the database server address, database name, authentication credentials, and other configuration settings. The format of a connection string varies based on the data provider being used. Key components of a connection string. Some common components you might find in a connection string include server, specifies the address of the database server, local or remote. Database, the name of the database to connect to, user ID and password. Credentials for authenticating with the database. Integrated security indicates whether to use Windows authentication instead of SQL Server authentication. Port, the port number to connect to the database server. Default for SQL Server is 1433. Pooling enables or disables connection pooling. How to define a connection string? A connection string can be defined directly in your code or stored in a configuration file like app.config or web.config for .NET applications. Example of a connection string. Here are examples of connection strings for different database systems. Number 1, SQL Server. Using SQL Server authentication. String connection string equal server equal your server name semicolon, database equal your database name semicolon, user ID equal your username semicolon, password equal your password semicolon. Server specifies the SQL Server instance like localhost or 192.168.1.1. Database, the name of the database you want to connect to. User ID, the username used to authenticate with SQL Server. Password, the password for the corresponding username. Number 2, SQL Server using Windows authentication. String connection string equal server equal your server name semicolon, database equal your database name semicolon, integrated security equal to true. In this case, integrated security equal true indicates that the application will use the credentials of the currently logged in Windows user. Number 3, OLEDB connection string for Microsoft Access. In C# coding line connection string like that. String connection string equal provider equal Microsoft.ace.oledb.12.0 semicolon. Data source equal to your database dot accdb semicolon. Provider specifies the OLEDB provider to use. Data source, the path to the access database file. Number 4, ODBC connection string for MySQL. String connection string equal driver equal to MySQL OLEDB 8.0 driver semicolon. Server equal your server semicolon. Database equal your database semicolon. User equal your username semicolon. Password equal your password semicolon. Driver specifies the ODBC driver to use. Server, the address of the MySQL server. A connection string is vital for connecting applications to data source. The format and the parameters can vary widely depending on the type of database system and the specific requirements of the application. Defining the connection string properly is crucial for ensuring a successful connection, whether the database is local, remote, or accessed via different authentication methods. Connecting to SQL Server. In this lab session, I want to demonstrate how to insert data into database and retrieve the data to view in the GridView. Last episode number 3, I talked about working with webforms controls. Before ending the session, created an simple application where user can enter data through some controls, DropDownList, Textbox, and finally the data loaded into the GridView to display. After click on the submit button, let's see it to run the application. Now I want to create a method to insert the data into the database in order to save it permanently. After saving the data into the database, retrieve it to view the GridView. Okay, let's write the code for insert data method. This is the calculate bill method. In this method, first part is created the data, that is calculation. Second part of this code is load the data into the GridView. Now we modify this method. If the SQL Server is installed in your PC, Then go to Start, click on the Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio, then run this. Now we need to create a database by the name of DB electric bill in the database server C#. Okay, let's create a database. This is the Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio. Now create the database name. GridView column head name and the database column name should be same, but it is not mandatory. TBL bill is created. Now we want to add some data. This is the connection string. Here a connection string is defined in order to establish the connection with database. All the required information such as server name, database name, user ID and password, all info are assigned to a string variable myConString. insert data method is defined here. The values which are required to insert are passed through the parameters. Connection con bill is created using connection string. SQL command cmd bill is created using my query and connection con bill. Let's run the program to check the output whether the data is inserted or not. Let's check the database. One, two, three row is already inserted. That's it for insert data method. Now I want to write another method which retrieve the data from the database and view into the grid view to display. Let's write another method. Now I want to write a method to retrieve the data from the database and load into the grid view to display. Okay, let's write the method. This is the code for the method retrieve data and load to grid view. In this line, connection is defined with the my connection string. In this line, queries is defined. In this line, data adapter SDA bill is created with my query and my connection. Connection is open. Here, the fill method of the SDA bill fill the DataTable DT bill detail with the data which is retrieved from the database. Here, DataTable is assigned to the grid view. Okay, let's run the program to check the output. Data is displayed here. When application is run, the method is called here under the page load. Let's insert another value. After click on the submit button, data is inserted into the database and data is viewed in the grid view. Let's check the database. August. This is the value. Okay, that's it for the application. Our next episode is CRUD operations. I will demonstrate another application, CRUD operation. Hope so you will be more clear about the CRUD operations in the ASP.NET webforms application. Okay, try yourself and enjoy coding.